What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi and Eric Sheetsaber. We're going to be talking through this main slate for Sunday, and I'm still having trouble with some of the games. I'm not getting projections on yet from SS here, so I'm going to try to figure it out as I go. But I think they're not games I'm as interested in anyway. For some reason, the Giants in Cleveland and Chicago and Indianapolis. It's early in the week still, so this is the first look, and we'll obviously firm things up on Sunday at 11 Eastern time. Also, Rhodey and I may go and do a show in between now and then. It gets a little closer to the weekend, and we know who's actually playing and all that stuff. So, Sheets, any overall thoughts you want to get into before we go game by game here?
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about the season before it started, we assumed that the trend over the last couple of years was going to continue, just more and more scoring, but it just seems to not be the case. It seems that half the offenses don't even exist, and everything is down. I don't know what's to be owed to that, or a lack of skill, or better defensive schemes, or whatever. Or maybe it's just a 2-week outlier. But we have seen some pretty poor offensive performances, and when that happens, you'll end up with really concentrated chalk on the teams that are being able to put up points, I guess. And that's just my instinct. And the other thing is, by the way, to echo that, I didn't have projections on those two games either. So we'll just see what happens. We already have this season. We have McCaffrey down. We have Tua down now, right? We have Cup down. We have, there's not even through 2 weeks of the season, and it's a shit show already. So, but we'll try to figure it out. I mean, I guess we'll just go game by game, and this is legit, like first look, and whatever. But just may as well start somewhere.
Yep. Sounds good. All right. So first up, you've got the Giants in Cleveland, and that's one of the games that I'm having trouble getting a projection for. However, I don't think I need much of a projection to know that I am not going to be interested in much from this game outside of maybe Jerome Ford.
You don't like the neighbors from the Giants?
Terrible. Like, worst matchup in football. I love Neighbors as a receiver, but I don't personally like. I don't know. I think there's just a lot of other options. Neighbors it's fine, but I just don't take receivers going into Cleveland in general. I mean, CeeDee Lamb wasn't doing much, didn't do much in that game, and I mean, he was fine, I guess, but it's just a terrible matchup.
I'll tell you who else is pretty bad. Is Deshaun Watson is pretty bad.
He is. He played well week 2, or better week 2. But yeah, you're right. He's awful, and certainly seems like, unless he revamps things in a hurry, they might be looking another direction.
But fair enough. I mean, I think that the game is probably low scoring. I think it's one of the least fantasy relevant games, and even Jerome Ford doesn't really do it for me.
Yeah.
I think that if anything, I would take a shot at the neighbors. Matchup be damned, I guess. But aside from that, I don't really see too much.
Yeah, and you could just, I mean, we could do that with Neighbors. He is too cheap for the receiver that he is, and certainly that he's going to be. So, problem is Daniel Jones is not going to rely on getting him the ball. Obviously, not going to be able to try and go out of my way to spend up on defense. But my favorite part of this game would be the Browns defense. All right, moving on to Chicago and Indianapolis, and this is one that I actually might end up having interest in. What do you think here, Sheets?
Yeah, I mean, here we actually have some stuff, I think. I don't know. I mean, you can go right back to the same guys from Indianapolis. You can play Anthony Richardson at 6,700. You could play Pittman. How did Pierce do in his second game?
It's the same Pierce as last week. He catches a couple long downfield passes. He's good. He had another good week last week. So,
well, I mean, it's a dome, so there's something. I'll tell you this: Caleb Williams has certainly not been so great to start off the season. So, I don't know. as I mentioned, a lot of these games have kind of inept offenses in general. So I guess you have a game in a dome with guys that have shown that they could do stuff before, like Anthony Richardson and Pittman and whatever. So I guess you could play some of that. And coming back, I don't know. I'd love to see Caleb Williams do something before I put any faith in that offense.
Yeah, I don't trust. I don't think Indy's defense is very good. I do think the Bears are improved on defense. Otherwise, I'd have more interest here. But if there was a game for Caleb Williams to have a breakout, this might be the game. It's in the dome, as you mentioned. It's Indianapolis, whose defense hasn't been good, and they got the Jordan Loveless Packers, but they couldn't stop the run to save their lives in that game. And I actually am considering both DeAndre Swift and Jonathan Taylor here, and I'm considering a game stack as a contrarian game stack that I want to be overweight the Indy games, especially when they're at home all year. And Anthony Richardson at 1% ownership, when he could easily, by the end of the year, like Anthony Richardson may end up being, 8,000 or something like that.
You don't think Anthony Richardson is going to get played?
I think his projections look terrible.
I haven't looked at a projection yet. I just figured he was the guy everybody always plays.
Yeah, you would think that. He didn't have a good week in Green Bay in week 2, and I don't know, and people don't know who to pair him with, sort of. But yeah, my guess is that it gets a little bit higher as the week goes on. But so yeah, this game, it might be a little bit thin, but I do kind of think this if this ownership is even close to correct, getting almost no ownership on this game is just a sneaky spot you could attack. Take a shot with one of the receivers, whether it's DJ Moore, Adunze hasn't really done much, but you could like you mentioned, Pierce. We haven't seen much from Pittman synced up with Richardson yet, but I'm hoping and expecting that to change. So yeah, it's a thin game stack right now, but I'm considering it as a contrarian play a little later in the week. All right, Houston and Minnesota.
So these next two games this is where I think a lot of the ownership is going to go, and I guess for good reason. You got like some real good skill guys in these next couple of games. And who would have thought that we talk about a Viking game, talking about like skill guys, So,
well, Justin Jefferson,
right. But obviously he's back. So if they get Addison back too, I don't know. And Darnold's obviously, you have it's chicken and the egg, right? Justin Jefferson's on the team and Sam Darnold's having a great start, So it doesn't matter. You have the two of them together. They're doing well. They're at home. Could be a fast-paced game, maybe. Because Houston can score a little bit too. And on the other side of that, you have Houston with CJ Stroud and Tank Dell and Collins. You have a dome. You have skill guys people have heard of. I think this game is going to be naturally targeted, and I can see why.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it does. I'm curious to see where the ownership ends up. We'll obviously have to wait on Jefferson because that's going to be a big piece. And honestly, Jordan Addison is being questionable is a factor too, because Josh Naylor might be interesting by the end of the week. Tank Dell is my favorite just because he's cheaper for Houston. But I have to say, Nico Collins looks incredible right now. Like he got bigger. I really, really like this guy just in general. But yeah, this feels like a definitely potential game stack. I'm not sure about the running backs here. I think Aaron Jones has some upside, and I think that Mixon obviously has already shown that he has some upside. But Minnesota's defense has looked great through 2 weeks. I do believe this Houston team can score on almost anybody, and I think Minnesota being at home, I think this should be a good game, and I actually might bet on Minnesota to win this game and go to 3-0 as one of the more unlikely 3-0s, having to beat Houston and the 49ers in 2 of their first 3. But yeah, so I have this as another game stack I'm considering. Not a priority one, but one I'm definitely considering. And if Jefferson doesn't get owned because people are afraid and he plays, just want to warn everybody that he is the best receiver in football, and you should be trying to play him anytime he's sub 10%. Sort of my Shohei argument for football.
I'll tell you this: Philly, as we go into this next game, Philly obviously did not look great. They did not look great with no AJ Brown, who they're not having back again. I guess it looks like it says doubtful. And they're walking into a situation that could be really nasty. Now, it doesn't have to be nasty. In other words, it could be that the last 2 weeks were just kind of like New Orleans, like outliers or whatever. Or New Orleans could actually be a freaking wrecking machine. Okay, and if Philly coming off of a you remember how they ended that last year? I mean,
Yeah.
they just were crippled and limped into the playoffs and barely survived the day. Much less have no chance to win. Like they're coming into this season a little flat. This is not the place to go right now if you're flat. To go into that freaking stadium and you get New Orleans Stadium, something to cheer about. That place is going to go freaking bananas.
Yeah.
And if this is real, like what Kubiak is doing there, and you get a full, I feel as though Alvin Kamara has been hurt like the last 5 years, But if you get like a fully healthy Kamara for, and then you get a good offense and Olave and whatever, the Rashid or whatever, Philly is going to want no part of this, And if New Orleans just comes out and just puts 14 up right off the bat again, this could. Well, first of all, this could get ugly. But second of all, this could be fantasy freaking gold. This game can really, really go off. Now, again, you could look at it the other way. Philly came out and just completely they don't even know how they lost that game. Honestly, and they listen. They do have Barkley. They do have some weapons. And they still have Hurts. And if they could have some pride and come back. Why am I afraid that this game isn't even close? That's my problem here. But maybe I'm being very biased over the last couple of games, like maybe a lot of people are. But it is a dome. You got New Orleans is running up the scores on people, and I think there's just going to be points scored in this game. I think you're going to want all parts of it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, and I'm actually surprised the total is not even higher because both of these teams. The thing is, Philly will slow it down by running the ball more because we've seen very clearly their commitment to Barkley, especially without AJ Brown. Look, Derek Carr's 5,800. That's too cheap for her, and we haven't even gotten to see him for 4 quarters yet because they just winning games too easily. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this game is at least playable. They're at least playing in the 4th quarter. I think Philly is a better team than maybe than some others do. Even without AJ Brown, though, it is lost without AJ Brown. But I think Jalen Hurts might be the best, certainly one of the best options on the week at quarterback. I know the defenses look great for New Orleans. I'm willing to write it up to somewhat small sample size, although I do think that they're much better. I like everything in this game. I have a lot of this as priorities. Both quarterbacks. I got Barkley and Kamara. I like both of them. I like Devontae Smith a ton. I like Shaheed. I like a little bit of Olave. Whoever's playing tight end for New Orleans, I might have some interest in because we've got Taysom Hill questionable. If he's out, I think Juwan Johnson's going to look like a really good play. And I think Dallas Goedert's going to look like a strong play, especially if you take the angle that either angle, like they're playing from behind or they're playing because they need to score enough points. It just feels like this game feels like an over 50 and feels like you could get all the fantasy goodness you want. How high owned it's going to be, I think it's probably going to have some ownership because everybody's seen what's happened. But as of right now, it's hard not to call this one of the priority games to target. All right, then we get a game that probably has very little to target.
This game is gross.
I like this Pittsburgh team. I like the winning ugly. They look good winning ugly. It's 35.5 total.
Yeah, I'll tell you who's good is the McConkey in general. I mean, I don't know if he's good at 5K against Pittsburgh, but I like him in general. But I don't know if I'm going to get to much here. Hold on. Is who's going to start in this game? So Fields is going to start again?
That's what we're assuming.
I mean, I have no proof of this. I have no proof of this from this season, but he used to have upside. You know what I mean?
They've been managing the game this year, and they kicked 6 field goals the first week.
And they're winning doing it. So so I expect more of same. 4 yards, what in a cloud of dust. And it's not like the Chargers air it out either. I don't know. You want to play a one-off of Pickens or somebody from or you want to play Dobbins? I mean, you want to try to run against Pittsburgh? I mean, listen, 135, 131 yards. Obviously, good for him. You know what I mean? He's got a great situation. maybe you are supposed to just do this. Maybe you're just supposed to play Dobbins. I don't know. I didn't really look at all the salaries yet and like who the best running backs are, but I mean, I'd like to say he's the workhorse, but it's not as if he even got the ball. I mean, he got scored 135 yards on like 10 carries, right? And like,
right, and then they gave him the ball more because he had another play he broke big early in the last game. But I've always liked Dobbins. I think he's talented.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a terrible matchup for everybody for the Chargers. I also don't understand why Pittsburgh's only a 1.5 point favorite. I really don't. I think that what I'm looking at here is Fields at low ownership and hope they get down and they need him to score. I'm hoping that maybe he breaks one long run. You know what I mean? Because at 5,400, it's not like you need all that much. And you can play him alone, but you can also play him with Pickens because he has looked for Pickens enough. They just haven't had the touchdown variance on their side, and he's looked for him. So he had a big play wiped away last week. It's not this. Nothing in this game is going to be a priority for me. There's no way. I was on Dobbins week 1, and then of course when everyone zigged and said, "Oh, it's going to be another Dobbins game because they're going to be able to run against Carolina," I'm like, "Well, maybe it's Gus Edwards this time." I went the wrong way. Now it's clear that if you're going to play one, you want to play Dobbins, but I don't really think you need to do that in this game. And it's not like he's cheap anymore. He's 6,400. So I think this game is mostly a pass, with the exception of possibly looking at either one of the cheap Charger wide receivers or one of the little Pittsburgh skinny stack with Justin Fields at 5,400. It's just too cheap for Justin Fields. And in this matchup, if they weren't just trying to manage the game, even if this game was in LA, well, there still would be a million Pittsburgh fans, but it's a better field to play, to score on. I feel like Pittsburgh should. I don't know. I feel like Pittsburgh has upside in their offense, but they haven't needed to use any of it. So it's pretty thin right now. All right. Is it Denver, Tampa Bay? Yeah.
Yeah. I happen to think this is a come out flat spot for Tampa in general. That was a big win they had.
Huge.
Yeah. And coming in home against kind of a weak Denver team, I can't imagine Tampa be particularly not motivated. Listen, it's football. Every game's motivated, but I could see them coming out flat. But Baker, listen, I've done this soliloquy before about Baker. He really owes his whole career to the Rams.
Yeah, he came back with that. That's right.
And Sean McVay. I mean, like, he was literally out of the league, and they brought him back. He played a couple of games for them. He led him on one nice comeback, and he just revitalized his whole career.
Yeah.
And he's got a just great situation down there now. You have Godwin doing. I mean, they have Rashad White, who's just a great guy for quarterback to have back there, or out there in the flat or whatever. Maybe go right back to these dudes. Maybe just go right back to Godwin. Maybe go right back to Baker. Maybe go right back to Rashad White. Is that bad? Even Evans. I don't know what ownership's going to look like. I haven't even run anything yet, but
yeah,
I can't imagine these guys not being good plays again. No.
Yeah.
Not so excited. Okay, all right, fair enough.
No. I mean, I'm just like I don't have a problem with it, but like, what are we worried about? How is Denver? What kind of a threat is Denver posing exactly? That's going to force them to throw the ball 35 times when they like to run the ball anyway. And even then, they're kind of. I mean, they had 10 carries for Rashad White and 7 for Bucky Irving because they like this Bucky Irving. So it's hard to just commit to Rashad White like we used to, because he got all the work. That's not the case anymore. But I do have White as a potential, and I can't do anything with this Bo Nix thing until he scores a touchdown. Like, I have a really hard time playing these receivers. But somebody could get there. Little Jordan Humphrey is a very long shot play. Yeah, maybe. But mostly this game, I feel like it's Godwin or Evans or Rashad White, and then just kind of leave it alone. No interest in stacking in any kind. I think Tampa Bay, even if they come out flat, it's just hard to believe that Denver can do much of anything. They'll make us, they'll win some games later in the season, but it's going to be more with their defense, I think, because their offense just looks like it can't do much. But yeah, if there was a time to change it, maybe in just a morning slate, if you're feeling really frisky. Maybe you do play the very cheap Cortland Sutton with a Bo Nix, but because Tampa you can throw the ball on, but I just think it's too thin for the big slate for me. Green Bay.
This next game is completely gross, in my opinion. First of all, you have Malik Willis revenge, no?
Yeah.
There's no possible way I can play anything from this game. I'm looking at this. I'm just not interested. What can you talk me into anything in this game?
I mean, Josh Jacobs is going to get like 500. He's probably going to get the most carries of anybody on the slate.
Oh, well, there you go. That's something.
The problem is Tennessee's defense is good, and historically they've always been. If you want to beat them, you have to beat them through the air. They've played those style of defense. Now you do have a different coaching staff in there now, so I'm wondering how much has changed. But I have Jacobs just because of the workload. I mean, Jacobs really. That's when I knew I wasn't going to have a good Sunday last week, because I had a ton of Jacobs. Like they had 35%, and he was like 5% owned. He had 32 carries for 155 yards, but he literally was walking into the end zone and just fumbled the ball. And that's when you know things are not going your way right there. So I do like Jacobs a little bit. I'm not going to say no to a guy like Pollard, but it's just there's other plays I think I'd rather use. He's been fine in terms of actual fantasy production, but it's partly some positive touchdown variance. I can't play any of these receivers from Green Bay unless Jordan Love is the quarterback. If Jordan Love's the quarterback, I think this game actually does become a potentially interesting, Green Bay stack, but I don't think he's going to play as of right now. So yeah, mostly it's just the Jacobs play for me. And could you take a shot on Calvin Ridley or DeAndre Hopkins? Yeah, I think those guys are viable enough, but nobody who excites me. All right, next up, what is that?
Carolina, Vegas, starting off a 5-game 4 p.m. slate, huh?
Yeah, I love it. Late swap.
Yup. Good for Devontae Adams, having a very, very big game in a freaking impossible spot in Baltimore, knocking out 35% of the survivor pool people. But I don't know. Low scoring game, I think. The Raiders coach wants to pound the rock. They're a 7-point favorite or 5.5-point favorite, 6-point favorite, whatever it is. I can't imagine this game doing anything. You have Andy Dalton, who's coming back, and for some reason, like, people think this is a good thing. I don't even get it. You get Bryce Young. You're not winning the Super Bowl anyway. Just let him freaking play for that's the way I look at it.
I would go even further. I would say they should have just committed for the full season. Just say absolutely, there's no way we're not playing you for healthy.
I mean, what are they doing here? So I just think this game's probably a pay. Listen, you want to play Devontae Adams again just to maybe just get a couple of touchdown passes and show she can do it still? Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Yeah, if they wanted to do the tutorial thing with Andy Dalton, they had the same opportunity to do this last year and just start. Why didn't they just start Dalton the first 4 games last year and then bring in Young afterwards? That would have been the thing.
That would have worked too. But this is ridiculous. So yeah. I probably have not much in this game. So you want to throw one off of Devontae Adams? Yeah, sure, why not?
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's how I feel. Exactly the same as you, basically. So Devontae Adams, and I will say that I think Brock Bowers is probably a good play. Like, this guy is awesome. He's going to be the best tight end or one of the best 3 tight ends in football in any minute. He was one of the best players in all of college football. He was actually, people had him projected number 1, some people, the year before he came out as the best player. He's really, really good. He's physical. He looks like he wants the contact. They look for him near the goal line. I think Brock Bowers is one that's probably the most interesting part of this game to me. Bowers or Adams, I guess, but definitely not one that I'm circling on my calendar to watch. There's some ugly games this week, but we do have a couple of really good ones coming up.
So, tough spot for Miami with no Tua. It's not just, listen, I'm not saying Skylar Thompson is not competent or whatever it is, but their whole offense is just based on timing and stuff like that. And just to replace Tua with Thompson, it's tough. It's just going to be tough for Miami here. Especially going into Seattle, which is not an easy place to play. Now, listen, they've got weapons, that's for sure. I mean, they've got arguably some of the best weapons in the league. I don't know if I could play Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean? Like with Skylar Thompson throwing him the ball. I just don't know if I can do it. 8-chain, 7K. I don't know. Seattle on the other side. This could be something interesting. So let's see Kenneth Walker. Let's see if he's back. Miami, they can give up points, and I do like the Seattle side. So I'm just gazing at this. Metcalf, totally reasonable, 6,300. JSN 54, Lockett 51, even Fan at 35. So yeah, I think the Seattle side certainly. I don't know. Maybe you play Tyreek Hill anyway. I don't know. So I definitely think Seattle could put up some points here. I like their side, and I'll wait to hear what you have to say about the Madness.
Yeah, I'm sort of with you. Like, I like the Seattle side too. I like the Metcalf, trying to get at least one of Metcalf or JSN. They both got there last week, both with over 100 yards. Metcalf with the monster touchdown. I think that, I don't mind taking some shots against Miami here, especially because they might have the ball a good amount. They might want to show off, but really it's going to depend on whether Walker plays. But if Walker doesn't play, Charbonnet is still a good play. So there's a lot of question marks. And in A-Chain, I really like, even in a situation that's going to be tough. But it depends on whether Mostert and Jeff Wilson being out, that would make him even stronger. But Mostert being in, I actually think Mostert becomes an interesting play at 5,700. So that it's still a lot to determine here, but sort of first glance, I like the Seattle side of it. And if I had to run back, I would probably use one of the running backs for Miami. I don't understand why, if you're Miami, you have a guy like Tua who's prone to these types of concussions and gets hit all the time. Why don't you give yourself like the highest level backup quarterback? Why don't you make that a priority? It's not that hard to do. Teams have done this for years, and I don't know why they can't figure out that's the obvious thing to do. Why don't we put somebody capable? Even if you had like a Jacoby Brissett or somebody like that, or Gardner Minshew, who I know he's starting now, but that's just, because the
right.
But anyway, if I were them, I would have prioritized that. Anyway, we can move on to San Francisco against, or I guess, is that what it is? What's your next one?
Yeah, I have Carolina. Arizona, Detroit.
Ooh, big one.
Yeah. Right. So I definitely found the most egregious price on the slate, but we'll talk about this in a second. So Detroit, Arizona. I'm just going to go on record. It's Wednesday. I might change my mind. I think this game might bust. I'm just hearing a little bit too much in like 5 minutes of content.
Sure.
About how this game is like going to freaking deliver. I don't know. I just think it's going to be way too owned. That's just my opinion. With that said, I mean you have dudes. You know what I mean? I don't know who the best receiver on Arizona is between Harrison or McBride, for example.
Oh no, it's. I mean, I don't know who it is for this week, but like Harrison is going to be one of the best receivers in the league. Yeah,
McBride might end up being one of the best tight ends in the league.
And McBride is one of the best tight ends. I agree. That's fair.
So, yep. I mean, Murray, who's running, can certainly put up a lot of points. Certain games certainly could go that way, and certainly on the other side, Detroit, between Jameson Williams, I'm not saying Brown is out. Oh, he's good. Okay, that's what it says.
He's questionable right now.
Yeah, but I think he'll play. So it'll be him and Jameson Williams. I mean, even Jahmyr Gibbs. It just looks way too easy. It's just jam this game. But I'll tell you what the most egregious price on the whole slate is, at least for now, is Arizona defense at 2,300. I mean, you give me $2,300 defense against Jared Goff, I am grabbing that. So, and I'm on record that this is 30% owned in cash. That's going to be my.
Yeah, I don't mind quite a few of the things you said actually, because like I think that like one of the ways this game could bust is Detroit is going to try to run the ball in general. We know that's what they want to do.
Yeah,
they have two running backs. The thing is, what happens when they're down 2 scores? Then you're going to have all the Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta.
I get it, but Detroit has a good defense. I mean,
they have a good defense, but they are susceptible to throw to the pass.
Okay.
Their secondary is not as good as their front line is. But the thing is that their front line, you're going to get all the Hutchinson going after Kyler every time. The thing is with Kyler, this isn't like, and I know Baker got away once for that score, but like they were all over him for a while. Kyler is his best plays are like when he has room to run, and if you're attacking him and everything breaks down, who's going to keep up with that guy? So I actually think that this is I think it's still going to be a good game stack for me. I could see it busting. It's not the only game I'm at. We'll get into a game in a minute that I like a little better, but I really do think that you want to get exposure to a lot of different facets of this game. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a guy who I really like this week. I also really like Jameson Williams every week. Did you see how much they're looking for Jameson Williams? That was crazy last week. Like every big play, they're looking for him now, and he's playing every down. So we got the super Jameson Williams.
Yeah,
Woozy's asking, should you trade J.K. Dobbins for Derrick Henry? No, that would be overreaction in my opinion. That would be my take on that. He could end up being okay, but I think your upside, you're limiting your upside, and that's not what I would do. And James Conner, by the way, is another good. Oh, there's free roll DFS saying that James Conner is another good play in this game. So
yeah, I mean, it's this looks way too easy. This Detroit Arizona game, it really does. I mean, you have Harrison, Conner, McBride. You have St. Brown, Williams, and Gibbs. You have 6 things you could shuffle. You're not going to probably play Goff, but you'll play Kyler Murray, right? And you could game stack this like all freaking day.
Yeah,
it's late swap, so you have that.
True.
I don't know. Maybe I'm just too much in baseball mode. You know, maybe this is too much like Coors. That this looks way too obvious. So I'm gonna just to be a pain in the ass. Just for now, say it busts, and I have literally no data to support it. So and because it's Wednesday, no one will remember anyway. So
yeah, and everybody's going to play it because, as we pointed out, there aren't that many really you got Philadelphia, New Orleans is like the only game in the early slate that really seems like an obvious. Oh, we want to get exposure to that. You know,
I think Houston, Minnesota people will play.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough. Although I would say that both those defenses have been a little bit better than. But yeah, fair enough. All right, this is the game I'm most interested in. So Sheets, why don't you start it off?
What can I get? I should go on that sportsbook thing and get odds on like a pick 6 for Arizona or something like that.
By the way, my first build, I built one lineup on like Monday, and it was the Arizona defense. So
dude, how about this is the perfect game, by the way, to play like Detroit receivers with the Arizona defense.
I love that style. I love that.
Yeah, this is beautiful. You play Jameson Williams with the Arizona defense.
There you go. That works for me.
All right, so here we go. So Baltimore, Dallas. I mean, in some worlds, this could be a preview of something, but both these teams kind of have to get their shit together. You know, I don't know which loss was worse.
Oh God, I know.
Home against the Raiders or Dallas is getting just tooled on by the freaking Saints. They're both pretty bad, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I mean, they're weapons here. You know, you have with Prescott, you have Lamb, you have is Ferguson out? You got the Schoonamaker back. I don't know. Like who's
Ferguson?
I'm not playing Ezekiel Elliott the whole season. I'm not doing that. Yeah. Tolbert 3,800. Is that bad? I don't know. And then Baltimore, obviously Lamar is always in play. Say Flowers, that ain't cheap, dude. 6,800. That is not cheap for him. And they didn't do you any favors with the pricing of the tight ends either. Except, am I gonna have to play Mark Andrews one of these days at 4,800? Is that terrible? I don't know. So I'm thinking about this game. I don't know if this is going to keep up with some of those others. I don't know. Convince me.
All right. So basically, must win obviously for Baltimore. Kind of like a must win back-to-back home games, and for Dallas. Like you want to start 1-2 after getting just housed by a New Orleans team that we don't still know who they are yet entirely. Unless if that's really who they are, then maybe that just is what it is. But I'm all about Lamar. I hope that Harbaugh realizes this is a must-win game, and the same thing they did that worked all year last year doesn't mean it's going to work this year. They tried to manage that game. They were up by 10 points with like 10 minutes left against the Raiders. They just tried to outmanage themselves into just getting a win. Like just beat the hell out of somebody. Go out there and throw the ball when you're up 2 scores. When you're up 2 scores in the third.
And the Raiders were weak. They were, you know what I mean? Like
they were nothing. The Raiders didn't even do anything. It's like it was just so stupid. I don't know. And then they were like playing safety prevent defense almost. Like it's just gross. So I hope that they get their stuff together. I love Lamar here. I know it's expensive, but I will play Lamar with probably Flowers, and 6,800 in Flowers. It doesn't bother me. It's fine. I think there's plenty of upside. I love the idea of getting the CeeDee Lamb. I actually don't mind Dak stacks on the other side. This game I'm going to be on all different kinds of ways. Derrick Henry, I like if you're not playing Lamar, if you're going to play that Dak stack, and I think you will see some production from Henry more as the year goes on. But the fact that people are already asking about trading Henry for Dobbins, I think that we gotta give it a little bit more time here. So I'm not giving up on Derrick Henry. Also, remember, Derrick Henry doesn't usually get going for a couple months. So maybe this is not the right week, but he's cheap enough to where I've got to take some shots. And then I don't mind playing a little bit of depending on if Ferguson's out, Schoonmaker becomes one of the best values to me on the slate at tight end. So and if not, I think Ferguson is in play. So I actually have Ferguson or Schoonmaker, whichever one ends up, whoever's out. I'm probably going to go play whichever one's, I guess whichever one's starting. Schoonmaker, by the way, has, they drafted him early. Like they like him. Like, so, and Andrews and Likely, it's Likely's going to line up more on the outside. Their line is going to need help. So I think that this might be a game where Andrews has to do that even more. And then they line up Likely on the outside like they did in week 1. So that's mostly, again, it's basically the whole game, but this is definitely one of my priority stacks of the slate.
So tough scene for both these teams, but specifically for the Rams. Losing both Nakua and Cup against having to play San Francisco is tough business. Yeah, I don't know. Listen, you're gonna find value pieces, I guess, for the Rams depending on who plays and whatever. So yeah, you can play some of those Ram wide receivers, I guess, because they're probably have to be coming from behind. And Jordan Mason seems like a good play as a 7-point favorite, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, unfortunately, my Rams season is starting to look like it's over with Kupp hurt. The offensive line has been terrible. We thought we were going to get some guys back. It's just been pretty gross. So it's going to be hard to not make Jordan Mason like a heavy priority this week. It's frustrating. There's no Aaron Donald there anymore. The old you can't run the ball against the Rams is no longer the case. Just looking at what else I like here, if anything. With no Debo, we kind of have to consider Ayuk, obviously. He was the obvious one, but
Debo is out?
Debo's doubtful.
Oh, Jesus.
I think that Juwan Jennings is by the end of the week is going to be a trendy pick that people go to. And I like it. Jennings has upside. Like, he's a decent receiver, and you slide him into that number 2 role instead of the third down, receiver. It's a lot different. I also think it's a huge boost to Kittle. So I'm on board with Kittle this week. So basically all the San Francisco offense I'm definitely interested in. And these games historically almost always hit the under. They're almost always really close. I don't know what the Rams are going to do because they priced the receivers up a little bit, but I honestly can't tell you if DeMarcus Robinson, Tyler Johnson, Tutu Atwell are the number 1 receiver. I don't even know which one it is. So I just have Rams receiver, and I'm going to try and see what I hear throughout the week. Because I'm a Rams fan, and I don't think they know what to do with this. It looked like Atwell the other day, and he's the one who won't get any ownership. But I think maybe the easiest thing to do is just say Parkinson's a good play at 36 at tight end. But yeah, an interesting game that I sort of thought I would have like a little more interested in from the Rams side, but I can't really find anything. Kyron Williams, he should get plenty of work, but this is not exactly the defense you want to be heavily loading up your running back. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. McVay does outcoach what's his name most of the time, and I think he's been a better game coach than
Shanahan?
What?
Than Shanahan?
Than Shanahan, yeah, excuse me. But he takes these matchups really seriously. So, the fact that the Niners are 7.5-point favorites in LA, I'm probably going to bet the Rams. That just seems just based on the coaching, but I honestly can't figure out how it's going to happen because
I don't know how it's going to happen either.
But we had a game like this, and they had a game like this the year they won the Super Bowl. They had everybody out, and they won the Rams were 13-10. The Niners were 12 favorite in LA, I think it was. So yeah. Anyway, just throwing out a little bits there.
I don't know what kind of home field advantage they're going to have anyway.
Yeah, the Rams. It's not the Rams that have the home field advantage. Just like. Okay, it's not only going to be 49ers fans, which in San Francisco it would be, and also playing on turf and playing at home. The Rams historically very good there. Yeah.
This game is this slate that easy just to play Detroit, Arizona? Really?
I feel like I like the Philly New Orleans idea, and I think that's going to be pretty popular too. But I got it as Baltimore Dallas. I love the Baltimore Dallas, and that's going to be the one that gets overlooked. But you can combine it with the Philly and New Orleans and the Detroit, Arizona. I was interested a little bit in the Seattle idea that you had. I think that's interesting, depending on whether or not Walker's available, especially. Chicago Indy, I think, is a game where maybe it's like 2 years from now, that'll be the game with a 55 point total, but maybe this is not the right year, but maybe we get ahead of it. I don't know. Just that was the other one that occurred to me along with Houston, Minnesota. But certainly the priorities are Philly, New Orleans, Detroit, Arizona, and Baltimore, Dallas for me. Anything else, Sheets, before we get out of here? And anything?
No, we're good.
Okay.
I'll see you in like 20 minutes for the.
Sounds good. Good luck to everybody this week. And we'll be live 11 Eastern